Welcome to the Republic of Middle-Aged Men. We are back again. Lachlan, hello. Ruben, hello.
Hello.
Just hit my microphone. Sorry about that if you're listening on headphones. Let's start off with what we're drinking. I'm not drinking beer. I am drinking better beer, according to the can.
What's better about it?
Is that the alcohol-free one?
It's better than other beer because it's in my hand. Apparently it's got 0 carbs, 0 sugars, and 87 calories.
There you go.
It tastes great. It's cold. It's nice. Slightly worse than a shot of whiskey. So to get a whole beer is pretty good for 1.5 whiskey price for the calories. So that's good.
Yeah.
What are you drinking there, Lachlan?
I'm on the spiced rums again with the ginger beer chase.
Nice.
Yeah.
What rum is it?
That is Sailor Jerry at the moment. I've run out of Kraken.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
How about you, Ruben? What are you drinking?
Cognac, actually.
Ooh.
Is it from Russia?
I don't know. I didn't look that closely at the bottle. It was on special. And I've never had cognac before, so I thought I'd give it a go.
What's the verdict?
I like it. Probably prefer whiskey, but that might just be a familiarity thing. Is that how you say that word?
Yeah.
I don't know. How many of those have you had? No, I've had that. I've had cognac before. Cognac's good. But yeah, anyway. I reckon we jump in. Time is of the essence. It's a Sunday night for us, and we have work tomorrow. And we took a little bit longer than usual to get on because we're talking about Facebook Marketplace and other things. So where we finished up last time was on Book 2, Part 4. So we'll kick off with Book 2, Part 5. And we'll see what it's got to say. All right, here we go. Every moment think steadily as a Roman and a man to do what you have in hand with perfect and simple dignity and feeling of affection and freedom and justice, and to give yourself relief from all other thoughts. And you will give yourself relief if you do every act of your life as if it were the last, laying aside all carelessness and passionate aversion from the commands of reason, and all hypocrisy and self-love and discontent with the portion which has been given to you. You see how few are the things which, if a man lays hold of them, he is able to live a life which flows in quiet and is like the existence of the gods, because the gods for their part will require nothing more from him who observes these things. There's a fair bit in that. So, let's begin with the beginning. Think steadily as a Roman and a man. So, obviously there's some pride in the Roman component there. I'm not Roman. I don't think either of you are.
The last time I checked.
But we're all men. So, I think that's the angle to look at it from. It's think steadily as a man. So what does it say? So to do what you have in hand with perfect and simple dignity and feeling of affection. Let's pause there, work through what that means, and then move on to the rest. What do you mean? It's interesting how it says feeling of affection, but later it's like it doesn't.
Maybe it's like taking taking the pleasure from like focus itself, and just not being distracted by other things. You know, you're thinking steadily as a Roman and a man with the task that's at hand. not getting distracted by anything else, and taking some, you've got some affection for that, is what maybe they're saying, is like you can appreciate that simple focus on the task that's at hand.
Mm. Well, you're right, actually, because then it says in freedom and justice, and to give yourself relief from all other thoughts. So it is about being focused on the task in the moment.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something in that. I mean, even when you are doing something, it might be something banal, you know what I mean? But when you've concentrated on that one thing and you're executing it well and you're not distracted by thinking about other stuff, and you just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. There is something to appreciate in that. I can understand
Well,
that.
that's why I like golf. Well, I'm terrible at playing golf usually, but when I play it, I can't think about anything else while I'm doing it. So it is peaceful.
I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do after golf because I hate golf.
I think Ruben shares your dislike of golf.
I played it once. That was I was there with you, Tim. That's the only time I ever played it. I didn't like hate it.
Yeah.
My
I
dad
think
uses
mine's
that old saying of it's a good way to ruin a good walk.
maybe if I was better at it, I would appreciate it more. But it's an exercise of futility for me. So.
Well, but we're all middle aged now. I think, that's the sport we should be getting into. It's either this or 10-pin bowling or darts. I mean, what else is there?
Mate, live a little. You could expand their repertoire just a little bit, I reckon.
It doesn't matter what you choose. According to this, you've just got to focus on that and forget about everything else, and it'll be fine.
That's right. There's
Now,
still
this
time
next.
to take up Greco-Roman wrestling, Tim. There's still time.
So, pass. um, okay. The next part. This reminds me of the Bible a bit, but I'll explain why in a minute. So it says, and you will give yourself relief if you do every act of your life as if it were the last, laying aside all carelessness and passionate aversion from the commands of reason, and hypocrisy and self-love and discontent with the portion which has been given to you. So the reason that reminds me of the Bible a bit is the Bible talks about like working for God and doing it to the best of your ability. And so it's like a different way of saying that same idea, I think. Doing your absolute best, like it's the only thing that matters, last thing you're going to do.
Yeah,
What do you think?
there's like kind of almost a focus on gratitude there.
Mm.
You see.
And certainly, like when you look at that last part there, discontent with the portion that's been given to you. I think that's definitely sort of, putting aside whatever grievances you may have had with, maybe the Greeks would have said the fates or whatever lots you've been dealt in life and all that sort of thing, and just focusing on it as though it's the last thing you're ever going to do. So putting everything into it and stop moaning and get on with it. Harden
Should
up.
read the Schwarzenegger edition. So stop whining.
Yeah. I'm whining. Well, he's saying like think steadily as a Roman, as a man. So I mean, it is stop whining, get on with it, focus on it as though your life depends on it in some ways, and get it done.
Well, there's also a reputation piece there. I mean, that makes me think if you're doing a job for, like, if you knew it was the last thing you were working on, would you take more time and be more careful with what you make?
For sure.
Like, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. I guess it depends on the job, right? Like, if it's cleaning the bathroom, I probably wouldn't spend more time on it. because I know, well, I'm never going to have to worry about this again. but but if it's something I cared about, like, I don't know, recording this podcast, if I knew this was the last episode we were ever going to do, and I was checking out after this one, I'd probably go for a lot longer, and I'd probably try and talk about a lot more things, and ask a few more questions. But I don't know. It's a weird way of thinking. It's an unnatural way of thinking. I think we expect to be there the next time and the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
The next part I find interesting. So it's basically talking about attachment ideas. So you see how few other things, which if a man lays hold of them, he's able to live a life which flows in quiet and is like the existence of the gods. Do you reckon that's why Socrates didn't have shoes? He was just trying to have an existence of the gods.
I don't know about that.
This makes sense to me. I have lots of things, and they take lots of time. Like, I have several cars, motorbike, push bikes, gym equipment, gardens, lawns, house. Like, there's so much stuff that makes noise, you could describe it as. Like, it makes noise in your life, interrupts you, stops you from being still and being able to be calm, like this says. Like, I think that's what it's getting at, is the more you got, sort of the more it interrupts you.
I was just thinking about it more like just in the quiet of your mind, not really so much about physical stuff, but I think that focusing on that thing and quietening your mind, where you're just thinking about that one thing, that there is some calmness you're probably bringing into your mind. It's almost that sort of like, people talk about getting into that Zen like thing when they like really get in the rhythm and they get, they're just like super focused on something, and it's, I don't know, it's probably some tranquility in that, right?
Yeah.
I quite like, sometimes doing, it's like blokes love mowing the lawn, right?
Well, I mowed today. Do you like doing the lawn, Ruben?
Once I'm doing it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. Because when you're doing it, that's like the one time you're not going to get interrupted.
Yeah.
That's what the toilet used to be.
Well, yeah. Not when you got a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old.
No, but I think it's that kind of job where you just kind of like zone out a bit, if you know what I mean. Like you just kind of, all right, I'm going up, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to come back. I don't know what it is, but there is some sort of calming of the mind that happens in those kind of things when you've like focused in on it. There's no other distractions, because that thing just it's basically making white noise, so you're not like hearing anything else, right? So it's sort of like forcing some calm on your mind.
Oh, so you're reckon like what this is saying is, if you can find a way to like everything that you do treat that way, you're probably going to be better off.
Yeah, you just focus on the thing that's in front of you and like try and zero out the noise of everything else, like the other jobs you've got to do, the other, concerns of life or whatever that are going on. Quiet your mind, focus on what you're doing, and there's something, I don't know what they're saying there, like flows in quiet. There's like the existence of the gods, because it's not often your mind is calm and quiet, to be honest. There's so many distractions, particularly in the modern world.
Oh, I just thought of something. I wonder if that idea comes from the idea that gods were responsible for like a task or a force of nature. Do you get what I mean by that? Like,
that's their focus, you mean? Like,
yeah, like they had a job to do. Like there was a job of like the moon, or a job of a particular star, or You know, like there was heaps and heaps of gods that did like different things, but there wasn't heaps of gods that did heaps of things. Do you think that's sort of how they got to that idea of like bees focus on one task like the gods?
Maybe, but I mean, it could have also been like something that reflected maybe the culture at the time, because people had a trade and they did that one job for their whole life, right?
Mm.
You're the boot maker, and so that's what you do. You make boots.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. I wonder if work was more meaningful back then because, like, how many jobs are available today that, like, ultimately it'd be very easy to think of, like, being kind of meaningless? I don't know. Would
Sure.
there be less of those jobs back then?
Pencil pushers.
Yeah, well, there'd be all sorts of things that would fall into that category.
They're probably just tax collectors back in the day.
But a humble public servant.
Yeah, gosh.
No, there probably were still jobs like that, but yeah, probably the vast majority were doing, trades, agriculture, that sort of stuff, I suppose. But
Well, I don't know. I wonder if that kind of focus is easier on a physical job than it is on like an intellectual one.
I think there is something in that, because Tim and I used to work together years and years ago, and we were still kids, but really, and there's something in doing some of the physical labor that we're doing. I did a few different jobs there. I did some that required brain power, and some of it required brawn power. And it's funny sometimes that you'd be tighter after the brain power days versus the brawn power days, if you know what I mean.
Different type of tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. The last sentence, I don't know if we need to talk about it much, but I'll just go over it. It was because the gods, for their part, will require nothing more from him who observes these things.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to sort of understand because I don't really know how they sort of conceived of the gods per se. You can only sort of imagine.
It feels a bit like, is it Ecclesiastes, where the teacher talks about being able to eat, drink, and be merry. Basically, is the gift from God. Like if you can focus on working and then enjoying family food and wine, you're blessed by God. Do you reckon it's something similar to that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was thinking it's probably something maybe more than like if you're doing the thing that you've been tasked with and doing it to the best of your ability, then I guess and your mind is clear and you're not moaning about your lot in life or whatever else it is because you're just sort of getting on with what you need to do. That you're probably following the right path is maybe what they're saying. I don't know.
Oh, you're kind of like if you're doing your best at it, what more can someone ask from you?
Yeah. Unless your job's like
may not work out, but you haven't half-assed it, so you can't really be criticised.
yeah, and you're doing that. Taking people's money and not delivering on the job you're supposed to be doing. So it may not be great if you're like a mercenary or something. I'm doing my job very well, like close to God by following through on that. Don't know about that. So maybe it doesn't work for every job.
Maybe it's more of a Cain and Abel thing. Of if you work to the maximum of your ability, it'll be recognised. But if you're a slacker, then it won't be.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, this next one's a bit of a woo. What are they talking about here? So 6. Do wrong to yourself, my soul, but you will no longer have the opportunity of honouring yourself. Every man's life is sufficient, but yours is nearly finished, though your soul does not yet revere itself, but places its happiness in the souls of others. What does that mean?
I, I don't know.
My take on the first part is it's telling his soul to be humble. That'd be like the first half. Like, you don't have the opportunity to honor yourself.
Mm.
So I think it's at least that part. I think he's telling like his inner self, like, don't talk yourself up. I'm not going to
Yeah, he's
let you
protecting
get
his
an
ego.
ego.
Yeah.
The middle part of every man's life is sufficient. I think that's another reminder, similar to section 5, which about if you're doing your task, then that's all the gods are asking from you, and that should be adequate. But the last part,
Mm.
yours is nearly finished, though your soul does not yet revere itself, but places its happiness in the souls of others. Is that saying his soul craves the, what's the right word, the validation of other people?
I was thinking maybe it might be that he's um, maybe he's talking about like overcoming the ego, and this is the
Yeah.
positive that it's not sort of focusing on itself now, and that it's looking at the happiness of other people rather than itself.
Right. That does make sense. Does your translation say it in a different way, Ruben, that could be helpful to understand it?
Yeah, I think this might be more understandable. Here, I'll read my translation. Self harm, my soul, you are doing self harm, and you will have no more opportunity for self respect. Life for each of us is a mere moment, and this life of yours is nearly over. While you still show yourself no honor, but let your own welfare depend on other people's souls. So I think you've kind of got to reverse
Mm.
that. Another way to this might not be right, but you could reverse it and say, while you let your welfare depend on other people's souls, um, then you're not showing yourself any honor because your life is short. If your life is short, don't waste time living dependent on other people's basically opinions.
Mm.
I might be way off, but that's my reading of that.
Mm.
You're not honoring yourself if you're putting your self worth in other people.
Yeah,
You're harming yourself, which is why it starts off with yourself harm.
yeah. That translation really puts a different spin on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Okay. Thoughts?
yeah, that could be and or both, and or either, and or nothing else. Like nowhere near it. So
Well, I think we can agree that it's saying to his inward soul to not big note itself.
yeah,
So I think if that's all we get from that, that's okay. It's about like be humble.
yeah,
Mm.
and don't and life is short, so don't waste it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
happy for that to be all we get from that because it's a bit of a weird writing, and I'm sure it's a
Mm.
lost in translation thing.
Yeah,
I don't read Greek, so I ain't gonna try and go deeper than that. But I'll leave that one to the experts. All right, let's go to 7. Do the things external which fall upon you distract you? Sorry, I'm going to start that again. Do the things external which fall upon you distract you? Give yourself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around. But then you must also avoid being carried about the other way, for those two are triflers who have wearied themselves in life by their activity, and yet have no object to which a direct every movement and in a word, all their thoughts. Okay, so starts off with a question: do external things distract you? Then an instruction: give yourself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around.
Hmm.
That makes kind of sense. What
Yeah.
is your translation? Does it indicate anything different there, Ruben?
The start is basically the same. You know, the question: do external things distract you? And then you, like you say, the instruction, and then give yourself space to learn some further good lessons and stop your wandering. So
Okay.
don't let your mind wander. Don't get distracted, and just try to learn some good lessons. Is basically what that says in mine.
Now, then it
Yeah.
says, but avoid being carried about the other way. For those two are triflers who have wearied themselves in life by their activity. So, is that saying don't try and learn too much as well?
Yeah, that's kind of like the democratic man that Plato describes. I reckon. Like
Hmm.
don't become a jack of all trades and master of none kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, fail.
Well, yeah. I mean, when we went going through Plato, you owned yourself up to that. You're like, I'm definitely the democratic man.
Yeah, I'm the
We probably
democratic
all
man.
are these days.
I love being a jack of all trades. It's good.
Yeah. Oh,
Can you
there's
be a
probably no
jack of all
other
trades and a master of one?
that may not have been a good way to put it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I angle at what he's trying to get at, maybe.
No, but I'm wondering, like, can you be a jack of all trades and a master at one?
Yeah, why not?
I think so.
It'd be hard. Um, I like this last part, and yet have no object to which to direct every movement, and in a word, all their thoughts. That reminds me of that thing of a ship with no bearing finds no wind favourable.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
important. I have ADHD, as you guys know, and when that's really being a pest, it's generally because I'm thinking about too many things, and that's where I use the power of journaling to just spew everything out onto my journal really quickly, all the different things I'm thinking about. Because I think part of why it starts churning so much in my head is I think I can't forget this, can't forget that, blah blah. So if I actually write it down, then I know it's parked there. I won't forget it. Now what do I need to focus on, and then I can focus. And it took me until my late 30s to figure that out about myself. I've only known that for maybe the last 5 years. Before that, it kept interrupting me being able to do what I was meant to be working on, whether it was assignments or work tasks or anything else. Once I understood that about myself, write it all down, takes me 10 minutes, and then I'm good for the whole rest of the day. I can focus.
I
So,
think like a lot of people like that too. It's why like, a lot of people like lists
mm,
because it is, you know, there's lots on. Like if you got like families, you got kids, you got work commitments, you've got other groups and associations that you do things with as well. There's always heaps of stuff going on, right? And you get distracted with crap on your phone and whatever else. So like, it's very easy to live in a distracted way like that. I think getting that whirlwind, like they're talking about there, have no rudder and just be sort of bumbling along with all of that stuff.
yeah.
Mm.
What are your
yeah,
thoughts, Rubes?
yeah. Simply put, I think it's saying you need an overarching direction and purpose.
Mm.
If you don't have that, you are just going to get blown every which way. So I think he starts out by floating. If you're getting distracted too much, you need to give yourself some space to learn a good lesson, which is to stop your wandering and grab yourself an overarching purpose so that all these other little impulses can be directed towards that purpose. Easy said, maybe not easy done.
Mm.
I think that's what religion gives people, or
For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
should give people. And interestingly, it seems like perhaps that's what politics gives some people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could that I mean that's tribalism, right? That's why some people find it in sports as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's that
Yeah,
idea of a group and belonging.
Yeah,
yeah,
associating with something and being a part of something.
Yep.
yeah. Like, why do you care for your family apart from the fact that you just love them immediately? It's like, well, strong family means a strong community. A strong community means a strong nation. Whatever, you know what I mean? I suppose a smaller version of that would be sports. Like, why do you go and train? Because you want to be better at that sport. Because why do you want to be better at sport? Because you want your team to win. Why do you want your team to win? Because that's your overarching purpose. Maybe that's a way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right, I'm interested in this next bit. So, 8. Through not observing what is in the mind of another man, has seldom been seen to be unhappy. But those who do not observe the movements of their own minds must necessarily be unhappy.
Pithy.
What does yours say?
Failure to read what is happening in another's soul is not easily seen as a cause of unhappiness. But those who fail to attend to the motions of their own soul are necessarily unhappy.
Mm.
So the Rube's dumbed down version of that is not understanding other people is not necessarily going to make you unhappy. But if you don't understand what's going on inside yourself, you're definitely going to be unhappy.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, uh, little sayings about that. Like, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. So if you are unhappy in one
You're,
place, if you go to another place, you'll be unhappy there as well.
yeah,
Mm.
true. If you're unhappy with yourself, it doesn't matter where you go.
Yep.
You
You
can't get
always
away from
take you with
yourself.
you.
Yeah, I think I see what
Yep.
you're saying. Yeah.
Yep.
But,
I think this is true. I've previously struggled with depression and being quite, what's the word, not content for a while, and then that turned around, and part of that has been, my faith, and another part of that has been thinking about these issues and what's the things we've talked about on here, like what is justice and what is virtue and what's good, and what's beautiful. And I was talking to my cousin the other night, and he was like, "Why do you like philosophy so much?" And I'm like, "Because it makes me appreciate so many things that I didn't appreciate before, particularly beauty. I just see beauty so much more than I used to, and in simple things, even just in timber green, I see beauty. And in my backyard, I look at the bark on the tree and I see beauty, and I look at the tiny little flowers starting to bloom on one of the branches that I trim back at the start of winter, and it just brings me joy that I never used to feel about those things. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. But I experienced something similar. Um, I heard someone say one like very recently. Well, a little while ago. Well, now, but um, like it's very easy to get uh, fed up with the culture because it is at the moment a little bit of a wasteland, to be honest. But I heard this person say, "Well, you don't have to live in this culture." I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But then he's like, you say, "Well, if you don't like this culture, we've got books. Like,
yes,
then just start listening to Mozart and reading Shakespeare if you don't like the culture you're in." And it was like a switch. And then I realized, well, I probably couldn't appreciate those things, 5 years ago until studying philosophy, and now I do. And
Mm.
it's like, you're right. I don't have to live in this culture. I mean, you have to. It's kind of a funny way to say it. You do. You have to live in this culture, but you don't have to find. You don't have to seek beauty out in it because you can find beauty elsewhere. But as you're saying, Tim, you've got to be able to appreciate that first, and I think that philosophy does give you that.
Yep, for sure.
That's also a deeply Christian idea. Uh, like the Bible talks about the two kingdom idea, right? That we're not of this kingdom, we're of a different kingdom, and that you can have joy at all times in your like enjoying Christ and enjoying your faith. And so I suspect it's similar.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's very very cool. I dig that part. Pardon me. All right, 9.
You got any thoughts on that one, Lachlan?
No, look, I think it was probably a bit easier to understand that one, and I think you guys are on point there. So good to move on.
All
Okay,
right, bro.
let's get going. All right, number 9. You must always bear this in mind. What is the nature of the whole, and what is my nature, and how is this related to that, and what kind of a part it is of what kind of a whole, and that there is no one who hinders you from always doing and saying the things which are according to the nature of which you are a part. That's a wordy sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's some big ideas in there, I reckon.
Yeah, in that 1 inch tall paragraph. All right, well, let's start here. What is the nature of the whole?
Well, that first idea in itself is like kind of like a call to unity. It's like it presupposes that something that is whole is better than something that is not whole.
Yep. What does it mean by the whole? Is that saying all of mankind or
Oh,
the
I
world
don't know,
or?
but the other thing that stands out is the reference to nature,
Hmm.
because to know what the nature of a thing is, you've got to ask, what is it? You straight away talking about ontology, I think, is the technical word for it. You got to know what a thing is if you're going to know if it's whole. So, like to me, I'm like they're straight away they're just asking questions that you don't usually get. You don't see asked very often, which I think should almost be always asked about everything.
Hmm. Hmm. I've uh, found myself thinking through some problems by asking the question, is it in accordance with nature?
Yeah,
And that's something I've learnt through reading Stoic philosophy for sure. Particularly, it's helped me have patience for my son because he's starting at 15 to get more testosterone and, he's chested up once or twice to rebel, which it's pretty funny. But yeah, because I'm like, what do you think it's going to happen here, champion? But, it gives me patience because I go, well, it's in accordance with nature that as he grows into a man and starts getting this testosterone, he's going to have this like flash pan feelings of rah, the caveman response here and there. And it's in accordance with nature. So I think you're right, Rubes. Like that's an important thing of that statement is that, like the nature and isn't in accordance with nature. That's a good question to ask, I think, in some
yeah,
situations.
I think it's something that can kind of like fit into lots of things though too, because like Rube just sort of saying, what is the whole, and the whole can be lots of different things.
Mm.
It could be your household, it could be your community, it could be the whole world, right? And what's your piece of that puzzle? What's the thing you're supposed to do in nature to be a part of that whole. So probably talking back again to what we were in the last chapter about like your purpose and
Yeah,
what is my role and purpose in this, and am I doing it? Is there someone distracting me from that purpose?
mate, I
Am I
think
distracted?
that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. That's
Like,
really good.
particularly when you mentioned, like, what do you say, like, different holes. Like, one hole could be your family. So, what's the nature of family? Another one could be what's the nature of society? What's the nature of this community or that community? What's the nature of your job? Like,
Yeah.
your job as a whole. And then that's why it has the question in there, you know, what kind of, what's your part in that? Well, for you to know what your part is, what your role is, you have to know what the whole is. And yeah, that gives you the purpose. Yeah, I think that was really well put, Lachlan.
Yeah, it is, and then it means that you have to step up to the plate, regardless of what role you're in.
Yeah, because you know the part you're supposed to play. So are you
Mm.
doing it? If you're not doing it, like you need to
Yeah,
Well,
get on
then,
with it.
yeah, you look at the second part of that paragraph, and it's like, and once you know that, there's no one that can prevent you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like, if you understand what your role, what the whole is, and what your role is, then
Mm.
nobody can really stop you from doing that.
Well, and I think that's actually it's a really important observation because I think we have. I mean, you were sort of saying before, Rubes, just about I don't know the wasteland that is sort of culture and stuff these days. And do you want to listen to other people, or do you know your role? Do you know what the whole of the thing is that you've got and what you want to do? And should you be listening to other people or doing what you know is right in your nature and the whole's nature for you?
Yeah,
Um, don't get
I think
distracted by that. Do what you know is right.
that's kind of genius.
yeah, I told you there's some gold in this book.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's kind of genius. That might be my favorite part out of all the books so far.
Nice,
There you go, calling it out.
Well,
nice.
there might be more to come.
All right, let's do 10. That's chunky, and then I reckon that'll get us through. And I'm going to mispronounce this incorrectly for sure.
Do it
But
Ocker
let's
style. Come on.
let's do it Mount Druitt style, eh?
Yeah, that's
All
it.
right, so Theophrastus and his companion of bad acts, such a comparison as one would make in accordance with the common notions of mankind, says, like a true philosopher, that the offences which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. For someone who is excited by anger seems to turn away from reason with a certain pain and unconscious contraction, but someone who offends through desire, being overpowered by pleasure, seems to be, in a sense, more intemperate and more womanish in his offences. Rightly, then, and in a way worthy of philosophy, he said that an offence which is committed with pleasure is more blamable than one which is committed with pain. On the whole, one is more like a person who has been first wronged and then through pain is compelled to be angry, whereas the other is moved by his own impulse to do wrong, being carried towards doing something by desire.
That actually sounds somewhat logical to me.
Oh, good. Can you explain it?
Well, I think it's just like I think in some ways it's sort of saying um, like giving in to the pleasures is almost something that's maybe like premeditated. It's something you can think about because you're not overwrought with something, right? So your mind is clear, but you're choosing to ignore your virtues and to give in to weakness, right? For the earthly desires, whatever they may well be. Whereas when you're looking at someone who's angry and maybe they've seen their kid get like, I don't know, hit by a car or something, and they like run over and like drag the driver out of the car or something, and you can understand that because it's a reaction to the pain, and it's sort of premeditated thing that you're giving into. Like you're still giving into something, right? But I think he's trying to sort of say that it's more instinctive than giving into a weakness for pleasure, I
I
suppose.
think I get it. I think I get it. Tell me if this is what you're saying. One is a misdirected strength, anger, or response to pain, and the other is just straight weakness, giving in.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's
I
saying
think
that giving in to a misdirected desire is a show of weakness, whereas a misdirected uh, giving into a misdirected anger is a show of strength. So that's why the giving into desire is worse than the alternative. Maybe that didn't quite come out right.
no, I think you're right in what you're getting at there. I mean, they're both bad, is what he's saying. Like neither of them are good.
But one is weakness and one is a show of strength. So a misdirected show of strength is better than a display of weakness.
Yeah, well, but I also think there's like an element of like it's a there's a predetermination, I think, maybe that goes on with the weakness, right? Because it's not like a split second thing that's happened. You've chosen it, right? Your hand was not being forced. Whereas I think in the situation where there's, anger or something like that, your hand has been forced. There has been an external thing that's acted upon you that's brought this out of you, and it's a flash in the pan. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah,
Whereas I think the sort of desires or something, you could talk about it being, lust or something. You're,
yeah.
you're,
Well,
you're thinking about this thing in a premeditated situation, and then you're giving into it through your weakness.
how about this? One is an attempt at justice, which may or may not, which might be misdirected, whereas the other one is just a self indulgence. So a misdirected attempt at justice is better than self indulgence.
Yeah.
That's another good way of putting it. Yeah.
No, I like it. I reckon I nailed it. That's pretty good.
Well, I don't mean to throw a spanner in there, but I was thinking
Please
about it
do.
from the perspective of the difference between a sin and a trespass.
Okay.
So,
Explain.
so trespass is intentionally, fully knowingly doing the wrong thing, whereas a sin is an unintentional wrong thing. So that's why, like with the Lord's Prayer, the traditional translation was "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us," because it was actually going to that next level of not just like sin, like you stub your toe and swear, or you look at a woman lustfully or something as they walk past, but it's actually, intentionally going, I know that I shouldn't do this, and I'm going to go do that thing anyway because I want to do that for my own desire. And
All right. So
that's a
which one's worse?
trespass.
The trespass is worse
Yeah,
than
the
the.
trespass is
Yeah. Right.
worse. Yeah.
Because it's a conscious effort to do something
Yeah,
you know is not.
before you've acted, you've weighed it
Yeah.
up and you've
Yeah.
gone, this is not the right thing to do.
Mm.
YOLO, I'm going to go do it anyway.
Mm.
That's a trespass.
So I think that's where I was getting at. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
premeditated.
it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may indeed actually be the same. I just haven't thought about it the other way for too long. But I have thought about the trespass versus sin conversation for years.
Yeah, that's good. That's food for thought for sure.
And I guess this is like coming back to that sort of like Stoic virtue of temperance as well, and you know you should be controlling your desires, and that you like that is a sign of weakness. So I think it is something like from a Stoic philosophy perspective as well as just something that's just really looked down upon. You know, it's on you. Like you should be able to control them if you know you've got some weakness around that. Like if you studying philosophy and trying to be a better person, you should be conscious of that, and it's a conscious decision to break it, right?
Yeah. I think of Peter and Christ. Sorry for the Bible example, but so there's a scene in the garden where Peter cuts off the ear of the guard in anger, like he just bang, and Jesus is like, "Don't do that." Heals the guy. He's like, "If you live by the sword, you buy the sword." There's definitely a rebuke, like that's not okay. Don't do that. But then because Jesus tells Peter, "You're going to betray me 3 times," and then he does it 3 times, and then realizes, I did that thing which I knew I shouldn't do, which I was told I was going to do, and I did it anyway. Christ then makes him say he loves him 3 times when he comes back, because that was a trespass. Like, Peter actually denied Christ intentionally, fully knowing he was going to do it, and did it. And so that's sort of what I look at for the higher level of doing the wrong thing, is it's that you knew before you did it what it would mean and that you were going to do it, and then you still chose to do it anyway. Whereas the other one is just you reacted and did something without having the opportunity to fully weigh it up and think it through. What do you think, Ruben? I don't know if that's biblically correct. It might be. I'm always open to say that I've taught a heresy on anything that I say, but that's sort of how I've thought about that. What do you think?
I think there's probably a similar distinction there. I'm also not going to commit to anything biblical there because
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if what's in here is because it's pre-Christian, there is more of an emphasis on strength versus weakness, like personal strength versus weakness, whereas obviously the Christian idea is going to be a little bit like it's more developed and better, obviously, in our opinion. So I don't know whether there's something in that, but I think what you've just described is definitely there's a similarity in the distinctions. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it, Rubes. I reckon your definition might be better in some ways than.
Of course.
Of course it is. Well, now only because I've been thinking about this a bit more while we were talking through this, because like I'm thinking in my head about like the example of like lashing out in anger about something that's just happened, but it could still be something in anger that you've been stewing on, and you're going to do it premeditated. You know what I mean? Like you're still thinking about it a week later, and I'm going to bloody smash that guy in the mouth when I see him next week. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so you could be right in that it is like an attempt at justice, though they're misguided, and that's a better thing than
self-indulgence.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe.
I like what you're putting down. That works.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, I think that'll do. We all have things to do tomorrow, and we're not young anymore. Staying up late sucks. Anything for the pub for lots of us from you two, or are we happy to skip till next time for the pub for lots of us?
I don't think anyone needs to hear me talk anymore about cars I find on Facebook Marketplace. You guys have heard enough. So.
Yeah, I think we call it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, guys. And to those listening, thank you for joining us. The Republic wasn't built in a day, and neither are middle-aged men. And we'll be back next time to keep working through this really, really awesome book called Meditations. Go get it, read it, you'll love it. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Cheers.